I'm speaking on behalf of Nicola Chamberlain. Nicola Chamberlain was known to a lot of people here as Dr. Nick, and Neil was the one who gave her nickname. And it was based on the Simpsons character Dr. Nick Riviera. So I don't know if anyone remembers, but Dr. Nick Riviera would walk into a room and say, "Hello, everybody," and then everyone would respond, "Hello, Dr. Nick." So I was going to see if we could get everyone to do that, because we're going to film this for Nicola. So I'm going to say, "Hello everybody," and you're going to respond. So, "Hello everybody!" Perfect. I don't even have to repeat it. Okay. So yeah, Dr. Nick wasn't able to make it. She's really sorry. She was the fifth Beatle of the Mount Cook flat. So apart from me, Matt, Sloth and Goldie, Dr. Nick moved in later. And there's a story behind that, but we'll see what she says. So Dr. Nick says, "What to say? I could not write in a day. We met when I was 13 in the Tawa College library. Neil teased me about how I wrote my S's. Old cursive. I had joined the debating club, and that was why we met. I giggled and we became friends. The giggling stayed on as a core part of our friendship. Neil was incredibly kind, and at one point when I started university, he, Ash, Matt and Steve let me turn their conservatory bar at the flat on Waller Street into an extra bedroom, and I moved in. The parties were extraordinary, and the number of fondue sets was extraordinary as well. But the barbecues were even better. And I was thinking at the time that Goldie set the hedge on fire when I wasn't home and the fire brigade came around.
They did.
And when I mentioned the barbecues, Neil absolutely loved to tell that story. And I would joke that I was still gutted that I missed the really hot firemen. Collective shopping and cooking duties for all kept the bills down. There was constant talk of cricket. I didn't know a wicket from an innings, but that was okay with Neil. Everything was okay with Neil. Later, I moved to Sydney, where he visited once, and we went to the Lord Nelson and Balmain Bowling Club. I moved to Sweden, and each year I came back to New Zealand, and we would always catch up and have a laugh. There are so many moments more that keep flashing through my mind of great times together. For me, Neil was more than a friend. He was a sense of home and family. I loved him as so many did, and I wish I had told him more. I'm so glad you found a special person with you, Tamsin, and your amazing and generous love. My thoughts and condolences are with you and the family. Dr. Nick."
That's very nice. Steve McKinley is going to do a telegram from his brother.
I just have to get up forward. My name is Steve McKinley. Many people confuse me with my brother, but I'm not my brother. My name is Steve McKinley. Sometimes called Shiv. And for the last few years that I spent with Neil, probably I saw him the happiest that he was ever in his life. His relationship with Tamsin was just beautiful, and the smile on his face the last few times I saw him was wonderful to see, and I knew that he was incredibly happy. So I know Tamsin's hurt very much. God. Phones. I should have printed them. This is from my brother Stuart McKinlay, who's a good friend of Neil's. I first came across Neil at Victoria University, but I only got to know him in the early 2000s for his backbencher beer tastings. We quickly hit it off over a shared love of beer, politics, and argue at last, but it was important we were given the most diametrically opposed regards on our views with beer and politics. The last couple of weeks have left me feeling realising how important Neil played in my life. The genesis of Yeasty Boys, I made a lifelong friends with his tastings. I learned so much about beer and history. I was walking down Lambton Quay to one of his beer tastings when my girlfriend called me to tell she was pregnant with our first child. Neil saw my enthusiasm and invited me into his world. He asked me to share beer writing space with him and Peter Creswell's popular beer blog, and then to steward with him at the New Zealand Beer Awards. I went on to become one of the chief scorers and later took over from Neil as head steward. It was during that time I met a bunch of fantastic people in the beer industry and Yeasty Boys was born. Our first ever release was Cocktail Black, a hoppy, dark beer directly influenced by the arguments I had with Neil over the importance of malt and hops. Sorry Neil, I love hops. No, malt. I'm going to really miss seeing Neil in his malt house meeting room on the trip to New Zealand. He was always surrounded by such a fun and warm-hearted group of people, which completely believed his veneer of having a tiny, dark heart. He didn't have that. He was one of the warmest and most generous people I've ever met in my life. Cheers, Neil. I might even have one of those tricky pony beers in your honour. That's from Stuart McKinlay. Thank you.
Stephen Russell.
And then hopefully, didn't have trouble hearing me, apparently, but I don't need a mic, so. Yeah, I was one of the 4 members of the flat, apart from we had a fifth. I spent many long hours on Neil's beer, playing Nintendo, many WWF games, Madden, Brian Lara cricket, many hours. Strange enough, Ash and Bad Boy didn't really get into the games, but that was one of our things. So I've just got a couple of little stories about Neil. You would have heard on many people know about his not being able to tie a tie. He always had them pre-tied or someone else to do them for him. So one night when he was out, probably debating, possibly drinking, probably both. He may have had, back in the day, in the mid-90s, it was pretty standard to wear a tie in the public service. You didn't turn up to work without one. So Neil had a selection of ties, mostly with Looney Tunes characters on them. So we went in one night when he was out, untied the whole lot of them, except for one, which was the one with the stretchy cord on it that came to about here and was about this wide. So he was always the last one up at the flat in the morning too, so we were long before he was getting ready. So he duly had to wear this horrible tie. I think it was a paisley coloured thing as well, it was like this orange, brown, horrific thing that he had to wear to work every day, so he was not impressed. There's another little story about cricket. One day, it must have been a pretty quiet game, it might have been, but Canterbury were playing Wellington. And a reasonably young Stephen Fleming, for some reason, was roaming around near the boundary. And this was just when Forrest Gump had come out, and Neil decided that his running style was reminiscent of Forrest, so he yelled out, "Run, Forrest, run!" And because it was pretty quiet, there were not many people around, Fleming clearly saw us, and sort of over where I am, didn't take much notice of it. So we didn't really think much more of that. We went back, I think later that season, and we got there reasonably early. We always like to be there early for the game. And from out in the deep, from the captain, yelled out, "Oi, Forrest!" Neil was quite chuffed with the nickname, it stuck. I'm not sure how long it stuck with Fleming for whether it was just that season or not, but when he moved to Wellington, maybe it disappeared. But yeah, Neil was pretty, so that's another one. He was very good at that sort of thing. So, yeah, thank you. Neil, be well missed. Great bloke. Never had a bad thing to say to anybody. Always good up for a laugh.
Thanks, Sarah. You heard from Sarah Jane how Neil worked for her. Well, this is a story about when we actually got revenge on Neil in what was called the men's caucus. Because in the research unit, the majority of the researchers were women. So Neil and Tim and Pam and Phil and Matt set up a men's caucus. Well, it's really just involved drinking beer. But every few weeks they would send out a press release. They would send it to a couple of dozen staff who were all friends around the complex. And these were sometimes a bit on the nose. In fact, today it would get you cancelled and definitely deplatformed. Anyway, they sent these round. One day they sent one round about Jenny Shipley had just announced that they were going to lower the drinking age to 18. She was the Prime Minister. And the men's caucus did this mock press release welcoming it because I think in their own words they're also desperate, pathetic people. They could never find a girlfriend, but by lowering the drinking age, that meant they might be able to. Anyway, when we saw this, I then went to Sarah Jane and said, why don't we tell them that it accidentally got published on Scoop? So, they would suspect the joke coming from me, but not from their boss, Sarah Jane. So Sarah Jane went to them and said, oh my God, that press release you sent out is on Scoop. And the Prime Minister wants to know what is the men's caucus, who are the members of it, and why they did that press release, and you're due there in half an hour. You can imagine the absolute panic amongst Bill and the others at the thought of this mocking, humorous, very un-PC press release that we got out there. The trouble was, we were going to tell them it was a joke, but they then contacted Scoop to ask them to take the release down. And then Scoop said, oh, which release is it? Can you send us a copy? At this stage it was nearing total disaster, but luckily we managed to tell them just in time that it was never on Scoop. The Prime Minister was unaware of the men's caucus and their jobs are safe. They came that close to them actually sending it out to the media. So that was it. One of Neil's experiences that I think he always treated.
We did actually work sometimes.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Have I come from the what is this?
I never ever imagined speaking on this occasion. However, I have to tell you a story about Neil. And I talked about it tonight to Jo, and she just laughed so much about it. I thought I have to share it with you. When we lived in Cambridge, and we made the huge decision to come to live in New Zealand. And our children were not part of that decision. They were 5 and 3. So we presented it to them as a fait accompli. And you try and persuade 5 and 3-year-olds that it's a wonderful idea to come to the other side of the world, leave behind your friends, your dog, your cat, everything that you know. However, we seem to do a really good job with Neil, particularly. He was 5. So he set off school the day after we made the decision and told him. And he said, can I tell people at school that we're going to New Zealand? And we said, yeah, of course. So off he went, as usual, real Neil, confident, off to school. And he used to come home for lunch, as was what happened then. And I went up to school, and I went with Ken in the pushchair, and the dog beside us to meet Neil coming out for lunch. And this dejected child came towards us with his knuckles virtually trailing on the ground beside him. And I thought, oh, this is not good. So we got home, and I said, Neil, what's wrong? And he said, I don't want to go and live in New Zealand. And I said, why not? And he said, well, James says. Now, James was 2 years older. He was 7. He was the font of all knowledge and wisdom as far as Neil was concerned. And he said, Neil says in New Zealand, they eat you, and I do not want to be eaten. I rang James's mother and I said, I am going to slowly kill your child.
JK.
Right, I've got a slightly different story. So this one involves a particular incident not so many years ago, which involves Kevin. Yeah. However, a very long story short, Sloth got stuck at the back of my truck. We all did a run and the police kind of, took interest in the truck. And Sloth pretended to be asleep in the back of the truck. I wasn't driving, but that's beside the point. So the police said, excuse me, sir, can you wake up? So I was who was driving the truck? He said, I don't know, I was asleep. They found a couple of roaches in the box, Yes, they kind of said, we're going to search your house under the Misuse of Drugs Act. What Sloth said was, which section of the act? And that's my speech, by the way, Thanks, guys.
That's okay. Dave Durham.
He's close, but not quite here.
Not yet.
On a little push. I'm holding his beard.
There he is, Dave Durham.
Hi everyone, Dave, sorry to stop. I just wanted to say two things. One, I'm going to speak on behalf of someone else, read the old telegram type thing. But the other thing is, I just want to note that Neil's life and career was very well explained at the funeral tonight too. But one thing that Neil was involved in very strongly was education. And education gave him the cash to fuel his ambitions, his real interests, his hobbies. And I was lucky enough to put Neil on 2 of the jobs that I had, the whole principle of finding someone better than you to replace you. And so Neil picked up 2 jobs at Business Zealand and at independent tertiary institutions. And those half-time jobs helped propel his career in media, which is great. But I had another comment that was a world-class cyclist and world-class team director, world-class can heater, Hamish Price, who's currently in France, who asked me to read a few comments for him tonight. So Hamish says, Neil was one of the great friendships of my lifetime. We shared politics, debates, learning, cricket, unsurprising to us how many people have been so moved by his passing. But despite being the biggest, loudest, funniest, and smartest guy in the room, it is a tribute to his innate modesty that he would be so shocked at the outpouring of love towards him. And I must say, the Hamish's, I was starting to write something last week about Neil's passing, and I saw Hamish's words, and I thought I can't write anything better than that. I started writing something, and it's exactly what Hamish had written. So thanks, Hamish, and I'm happy to share your words about Neil.
I've got a telegram from Australia. This is from Andrew Robertson. I've known Neil for over 20 years, having first met him when I started work at the National Research Unit in 1999. My first impressions were of him as an incredibly witty guy who could always find a clever angle, and everyone called him Millsy. I first got to know him one Saturday afternoon when we both happened to be in the office and thought it might be time to have a quick beer. I was new to Welly and we thought we'd try a new bar called the Feathers. That one beer became 6 pints and we've been friends ever since. Neil is the funniest and one of the smartest and kindest people I've ever met. He was great company and a great friend. I have a lot of memories sitting in his flat on Molesworth Street, both before the days of the Tui Couch and after, watching wrestling or rugby, chanting Missy Missy Chocolate Fishy, classic shows like Professionals, movies, With Nail and I, etc. Invariably these evenings ended with me surrounded by empty stubbies of Stella Artois and him, I guess, surrounded by Tui bowls. Another enduring memory is Neil at a karaoke bar, probably the Steamboat, singing When the Lion Sleeps Tonight. But not all of the lyrics, just the Obumawe bit over and over again, with his eyes shut, turning his head from side to side, while someone else tried to sing, possibly Matt Bird. Later memories include going to beer tastings at Regional Wines and Spirits, which is when that serious interest in craft beers may have really got going. He used to impress the host, Jeff Griggs, by turning up wearing his Tui shirt and making witty interventions about what a fine beer that was. Neil was very inclusive and I got to know a lot of his close friends who became my friends in their own right. One highlight was when Neil and a small group of us created the betting syndicate called the Conquistadors, complete with, naturally, extremely stylish Hawaiian shirts as our uniform. I'm sure a few of those shirts are on display right now. I heard someone say over the past week or so that Neil had a knack for giving nicknames that stick. That was true in my case, as he gave me the nickname Panda, which soon became Shong Mao. He came up with it by asking Pansy Wong, the MP I was working for, what the Chinese word for panda was. I'm still called Shong Mao to this day. Most of the time I spent with Neil was during the 2000s and I hardly saw him over the last 10 years. I moved overseas, but I always took it for granted that there would be more time down the track. The last time I saw him was in Vietnam 3 years ago. I remember he was delighted to discover that I'd witnessed him being admitted to the venue early with the VIPs, while I was waiting outside in a long queue. All these memories of Neil will always mean a lot to me. I am proud to have been his friend. I would have loved to have been at Fork and Brewer with everyone tonight, but I'll be toasting him in Canberra with another one of his oldest friends, Big Mike. Take it easy, Millsy.
Yay, Sean.
Yay!
Another this is from Anika, it's a quick one. Anika's in photos up there. I first met Neil in 2009 when I entered the Kiwi craft beer scene working for Yeasty Boys. This was back in the day when everyone in Wellington knew each other via beer, Twitter, or Twitter and beer. You could always find him at Neil's table at the Mold House. I still call it Neil's table, and I'm surprised anytime I see someone else sitting there. We bonded over a shared love of beer, deep-fried haggis on a stick, black puddings, haggis, and black puddings on pizza.
a thing. WrestleMania, Journey, and generally just talking bollocks. He even came to my apartment one time to cook catering for my flatmate needs. He taught me how to articulate the flavours I was finding in here. His Malthouse blog always made me laugh, and I learned something at each test tasting in my grand. He was my friend, someone you could always count on for a pint and a chat, someone with whom you could banter as well as have a real conversation. He encouraged my harebrained idea that if we took an afternoon, we could drink our way around all 29 Malthouse taps. In fact, I think when Amy, Helena, and I did do that on St. Patrick's Day, he even came and put some money on our tab to help us complete that stupidity. He was so proud of us that we finished. He's also probably the only person that ever got away with referring to me as a glamazon. The memory that makes me laugh the most though is being at the cricket test with him when we were caught on camera holding a David Warner likes Nickelback sign. It was funny to be part of what was dubbed perhaps the greatest sledge in cricketing history. He was so proud of himself and it led to some excellent cricket banter. Jansen, my heart goes out to you. You healed him in so many ways and I'm sorry you didn't get the time you deserve together. Thank you for bringing joy into my friend's life. So let's all raise a glass to absent friends and don't stop believing. Does anyone else want to say? Rick, do you want to say anything? Stephen.
Yeah, g'day. I played cricket with Slough for a few years. Back in the day, I used to work for a beverage company, and we'd get tickets to the basketball. I got corporate tickets, and these tickets allowed you to sit up in the grandstand, and you got free beer. So of course Neil was in. And we used to meet at his Wallace Street flat. Neil would lead us over the road in bright orange pants, but he insisted on taking Mr. Blobby. And this was not just any old Mr. Blobby, this huge inflatable Mr. Blobby. And Mr. Blobby had to have his own seat and his own beer. So these corporate tickets were well spent. Yeah. Neil made sure Mr. Blobby got free. Anyway, I miss you, Melody.
Chris Bishop, would you like to Sarah? Ashley, one more story?
I was trying to look for Mr. Shin. Mr. Shin. Where are you? We're going to need to roll the footage in a moment. Ready? I'll signal you in. But yeah, I was going to say a couple of things about the origin of these Hawaiian shirts. So I think a couple of people have mentioned already about the Conquistador betting syndicate, which was a supremely unsuccessful betting syndicate, but we had a lot of fun. And yeah, we will get there. So Neil and I formed this betting syndicate, and we brought quite a few people into it. And the idea was that we would place these small bets every week, and also save some money every week, and then we would do a big sort of team trip at the end of the year. And the first team trip we decided to do was do the Basin Reserve to watch New Zealand play cricket. And I think it was against Pakistan, but memories do differ. And I said to Neil, why don't we take your 2E couch to the Basin Reserve? And Neil says, that's a great idea, but let's just make sure that we can get it in all right. We probably should check with the Basin management. So I ring up and I get hold of, I think David Gray, the chief executive. And I said, can we bring up 2E couch to the Basin? And he says, Look, sorry guys, but I think that a Tui couch might be a centre of drunken revelry, and you cannot bring that couch in. So I told Neil this, and he said, right, let me see what I can do. So he talks to a friend of his who's a journalist for the Sunday Star Times, and we arranged for our the conquistadors to turn up at the Basin Reserve with our couch and to be interviewed by the Sunday Star Times, get photographed in front of the Basin Reserve, and the unhappy situation of not being allowed to take our couch. We were so sad. So we took a photograph, and Duncan Shaw, Kenny Clark, I think some of you will know as well, and I were on the front page of the Sunday Star Times 2 days later. Now the story gets a little bit more prosaic. So we pick up the couch, we take it to the gate, and the security guard says, look, I can't let you take this through the front gate, but look, if you toss it over the fence, that'll be okay. That didn't appear in the newspaper article. So the couch gets tossed over the fence, and I can assure you it was not a centre of drunken revelry at all. Now, so the conquistadors did some great things together. We used to hold poker nights, and Neil would turn up at his poker nights. The stakes were quite low. We'd started with about a $5 stake. Neil would usually finish the night with about $5. And, I could make a comment there about his Scotch heritage, but there were at least 3 or 4 other conquistadors with Scotch heritage, and I think it was a mark that Neil was the only true Scotsman there. But he managed to hold on to his $5. Now, we are going to get, hopefully, to the footage from the Hutt Park Raceway in a moment.
Can you do it? There we go.
Can you do it? Okay, hold on to it. Hold it there. We'll need the speaker as well. Just pause it for a moment. But the conquistadors head out to the Hutt Park Raceway. Now, I'm nominally the chief of the conquistadors, but the president. But I'm really a kind of Jack Tunney type figure for those who are familiar with WWF wrestling. I'm just a nominal sort of chief. And in the background we've got Neil as a kind of Bobby Heenan figure who's a bit of a teaser and a pest, and he's sort of driving things and making things miserable for me. So we turn up at the Hutt Park Raceway. We have sponsored this race, as Chris Money said. We put $100 good money down. And as president of the conquistadors, I turn up, and my job at the conclusion of the race that we sponsored is going to be to turn up and present the ribbon to the owner of the winning dog. But Neil had other ideas. So Neil had a slightly different ideas. So we were at the Hutt Valley Park Raceway, or whatever it was called back in those days. Neil disappeared for a few minutes, and then an announcement comes over the tannoy, and it's, good evening ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to welcome the conquistadors to the Hutt Park Raceway tonight, and with him tonight is their leader, Sloth, who will present the ribbon for the winner of the 747 8-dog 500-meter race. So now, Shane, can I get you to play it up?
He's going to try.
We'll do our best, but you should be able to see the conquistador release the hound in a moment. Conquistador release the hound. And they're off! Silver Sherwin comes down the outside.
Goes to his little helper.
going to go very wrong very soon.
This is what a damn shame. What a damn shame that was. Oh no. Don't chase those ducks. Those paradise ducks, they're protected by law. Don't chase those. Or something quite close.
They were chasing duck or geese out in the middle. And,
Paradise ducks!
And meanwhile, us conquistadors, we're fallen on the floor. We were laughing like nobody's business.
Neil was actually on the side, holding his stomach.
The president of the Greyhound Club comes up to us and is really, really apologetic. But somehow our sponsored race was ruined for all time. But yeah, the thing that I just wanted to sort of get across is that Neil really made things happen. Somehow, he would sort of come up with amazing ideas and drive those through. They would happen. But the other thing is that amazing things would happen when Neil was there. I mean, the club told us that the lure falling off the rail had not happened in 20 years. We just happened to be there for that. Amazing things happened when Neil was there. And finally, Neil was a friend. You just one of a kind where you would fall. You'd have those moments where you'd fall on the ground, laughing. And I'm going to miss that so much that we're not going to recreate new memories like that. But I'm so glad that we had those old memories.
I think that was actually it on us. Anyone else want to say? We might.
Hi everyone. My name's Philip Irvin. I used to read the Corporate Citizenship Edinburgh his name for me was Dr. Gervin. I never knew why. He liked to call me that, but that was fine. Yeah, Dr. Gervin anyway. But yes, he had a bit of fun with me there. He got hold of my security card once, photo on it, and on the pretext of needing it to go to the or something, and he used the photo to make a whole publication about me called the Gervin Gazette. I think my slide hit on various famous outrageous articles. But back in those days, he was still a fan of Tui, and that was his beer of choice. And I did manage to have some influence over him and getting him into craft beers such as, at that time, picking up from Nana was one. So yeah, and Neil Fashion, of course, he picked up and ran with it, and next thing he was making a living out of this. It's great, writing about it, but he was just a very talented, funny man, and we had a lot of fun over the years, and I'll really miss him. That's good.
Hello.
My name's Aaron.
Hey, Barry.
Aaron. You can call me either if you want, Aaron. I answer many things. My first experience meeting Neil was 2009, a year after I got into Parliament, and he called me a Tory, crazy, silver spoon, I can't remember something else. But then he also nicknamed me Chewbacca, which I quite liked, because I was a big fan of Star Wars. Unfortunately, 3 years later, I resigned from Parliament, and Neil wrote an article in the Chartered Accountants Journal, which I'm not sure anyone in this room ever read. But I was a member of the Chartered Accountants, and I read it. And my mother read it. And she said, have you seen what this man has written about you? And I said, what man? And she sent me the article. And I rang Neil and I said, Neil, what did you write? Because I can't even read it. My mother sent me a half a page. You know how old people see pictures of half, anyway. So it was on a funny angle and half blue. Anyway, I got a finding copy from Neil, and I said, we need to meet and talk about this because it's full of inaccuracies. And he went, yep, I'll meet you at the Fork and Brewer. Here we are. So we met at the Fork and Brewer, and we literally sat at the table just there. And at the end of 6.5 hours of drinking, at 2 a.m, when everybody else had left, after they kept the bar open because Neil was Neil, we agreed 3 things. 1, I was still a dickhead. 2, Neil was wrong. And 3, the beer tab was somebody else's problem.
Well, it's not my intention to speak tonight. However, the previous speaker has inspired me. So my name is William Cass. I met Neil in 2010 under similar circumstances. I was the first one of the early employees at Tuatara Brewery, and Neil was interviewing me as a blog post. For those of you that don't know, Neil would do the blog post for both Tuatara and Monkhouse, various other blogs throughout the beer sphere. However, so long story short, at one point in the interview, he asked me, so what are your beer influences, Will? And I'm saying, oh, I love a Spike's Old John. And if you go back and read the interview today, which I did today, I looked it up and it's still there in the world of the internet. He managed to articulate the responses to my amazing appreciation of the celebration of beer, from Erdinger to dark beers to IPAs, and he spoke very favourably about my response. So I appreciate his ability to articulate and to bring the best out of people, and I'm going to sincerely miss that man. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Alright everyone, we're going to try something.
Singing?
Let's see how we go. But do wet your whistle, loosen your tonsils.
I knew it.
This might be one of